2,837 years ago, the prophet Isaiah wrote something impossible. Jews scattered across the four corners of the earth would return home. In 1948, against all odds, Israel rose from the ashes. But what's happening now, in 2025, has made rabbis around the world declare, "We are in the generation of Mashiach." 5 perfect red heifers, 3 blood moons, a war that could reshape the Middle East, and a calendar marking 5785, with only 215 years remaining until the year the Talmud calls the end of concealment. Coincidence? Or are we witnessing, for the first time in 2,000 years, the 7 signs that Jewish tradition says announce the coming of the Messiah? You're about to find out in this video, and what you're about to see may completely change your perspective on the world we're living in. Before we dive into the signs, you need to understand something fundamental. In Jewish tradition, the coming of Mashiach, the Messiah, isn't just a vague hope for the future. It's a mathematical, prophetic and historical certainty. Rabbi Moses Maimonides in the 12th century established as one of the 13 principles of Jewish faith, "I believe with perfect faith in the coming of Mashiach, and even though he may tarry, I await his arrival every day." But here's the paradox that has intrigued sages for millennia. The Talmud, in Tractate Sanhedrin 97a, states that the world exists for 6,000 years, followed by 1,000 years of the messianic era, called the millennial Sabbath. And guess what? We're in the year 5785 of the Hebrew calendar. Do the math. 6,000 minus 5,785 equals 215 years remaining. According to the Rebbe Menachem Schneerson, leader of the Chabad movement who passed away in 1994, all the service necessary before the messianic era has already been completed. We are only awaiting the revelation. But there's more. The Talmud also mentions more than 50 signs that would precede the coming of Mashiach. Global conflicts, disrespect for elders, increase in insolence, economic crisis, and something very specific, the return of Jews to their land. When you look at 2025, it's not just one sign that's being fulfilled. It's 7 signs simultaneously, something that has never happened in modern history. So the question isn't whether these signs matter. The question is, what do they mean for us now? The first sign is the return of the exiles. Isaiah chapter 11 verses 11 and 12 prophesied 2,700 years ago. "In that day, the Lord will reach out his hand a second time to reclaim the surviving remnant of his people. He will raise a banner for the nations and gather the exiles of Israel from the 4 quarters of the earth." For centuries, this prophecy seemed impossible. Jews were scattered across 100 countries, without a homeland, without hope of return. But then, on May 14, 1948, something extraordinary happened. Israel was reborn. And since then, more than 3 million Jews have made Aliyah, which literally means to ascend or go up toward Jerusalem. But here's what will surprise you. 2024 and 2025 broke all records, even with a devastating war since October 2023. Even with missile attacks, even with the world saying don't go there, more than 30,000 Jews immigrated to Israel. From France, 2,178 Jews in 2024, an increase of 99% compared to 2023. Aliyah applications from France exploded by 500%. That's almost 7,000 applications in 2024 versus 1 to 200 the previous year. Surveys indicate that approximately 38% of French Jews, around 200,000 people, are considering making Aliyah to Israel. From the United States, 202 Americans made Aliyah in the first 8 months of 2024, a growth of 11%. From Ethiopia, the International Christian Embassy Jerusalem sponsored flights for 3,286 Ethiopian Jews since 2015. In February 2025, 26 more arrived, with another 40 on the way. Jacob Licht, 50 years old, left the United States in February 2024 with his wife Panina and his daughter Miriam. He said, "One of our other daughters had already made Aliyah and was serving in the Israeli Air Force. Our desire became even stronger after October 7th because there was an attack on our people and our land. Hadar Amar, 24 years old from California, had never thought about moving to Israel until 2023. She said, "I graduated in the United States and started working at a company. However, there was always a feeling of loneliness. I just didn't feel connected. In America, I felt like an outsider." Brazilian archaeologist Yael van Manen, who works helping new immigrants in Israel, reflects, "Every day brings unique experiences. You see people leaving everything behind, careers, homes, security, because they feel a calling they can't explain. And here's the most impressive part. The president of the Jewish agency, General Doron Almog, predicts that up to 1 million Jews may make Aliyah in the coming years, driven by rising antisemitism globally. Israel already surpassed 10 million inhabitants in 2024. Projections indicate 15 million by 2048 and 20 million by 2065. It's exactly what Zechariah chapter 10 verses 8 through 10 prophesied 2,500 years ago. "I will gather the Jews from the four corners of the earth, and there will be so many that there won't be enough space for all of them." The International Christian Embassy reported that in 2024, it helped 3,753 Jews in their Aliyah and integration process in Israel, which represented 11.3% of total immigration numbers. This brings the cumulative total to 188,977 Jews assisted with Aliyah since the Christian Embassy's founding in 1980. First sign, fulfilled. The second sign is wars and rumors of wars. The Talmud in Tractate Megillah describes the period before the coming of Mashiach with a chilling phrase, "There will be a time of great conflict, global recession, governments controlled by despots," and it's in this problematic situation that the coming of Mashiach will occur, October 7th, 2023. Hamas launches Operation Al-Aqsa Flood, the largest terrorist attack against Israel since the Holocaust. More than 1,200 Israelis killed in a single day, 240 hostages captured. Israel's response was immediate and devastating. By August 2025, according to the Washington Post, 18,592 children were killed in Gaza by Israeli forces. According to UNICEF, Israeli forces' actions killed 28 children per day in Gaza. A ceasefire was negotiated on January 15, 2025, but was broken on March 18 when Israel launched new surprise attacks, killing more than 404 people, according to the Gaza Ministry of Health. And then came the unthinkable. June 13, 2025, Israel bombs nuclear facilities in Iran under the codename Operation Rising Lion. Targets in Tehran, Natanz, Fordo, Isfahan, Tabriz, Hamadan, and Parchin were hit. Iranian nuclear scientists, Revolutionary Guard leaders, and more than 200 civilians died, according to the Iranian government. The pretext? The International Atomic Energy Agency accused Iran of violating non-proliferation commitments, but the real reason was deeper: dismantling the axis of resistance, the network of Iranian proxies that includes Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis in Yemen, and militias in Iraq. The Iranian retaliation came quickly. Operation True Promise 3 launched ballistic missiles and drones against Israeli military installations and residential areas. Iran promised to wipe Israel off the map. The war lasted 11 days from June 13 to 24, 2025, but its consequences still reverberate. Hezbollah suffered devastating blows in southern Lebanon. 3,145 Lebanese died by November 2024, most after September. In Syria, the regime of Bashar al-Assad, Iran's crucial ally, collapsed in December 2024, further weakening Iranian influence. And it doesn't stop there. Since October 7, 2023, 28,000 rockets, missiles, and drones were launched against Israel by Hezbollah, Iran, Houthis, and Palestinian groups. Most were intercepted by the Iron Dome system, but 29 civilians died by mid-October. In the West Bank, 719 Palestinians were killed by Israeli forces between October 7, 2023 and October 7, 2024, the highest number since the UN began systematically recording in 2005. Abu Obaida, Hamas military spokesman, cited the arrival of the red heifers from the United States as one of the reasons for the October 7th attack, calling it an application of a detestable religious myth designed to offend the feelings of an entire nation. Ezekiel 38 prophesied about the war of Gog and Magog, a coalition of nations attacking Israel in the last days. Names like Persia, which is Iran, Togarmah, which is Turkey, and Kush, which is Ethiopia and Sudan, appear. Modern rabbis point out, never in recent history have we seen Israel simultaneously surrounded by so many active enemies. Professor Fawaz A. Gerges from the London School of Economics predicts, intense hostilities may end in 2025, but new rounds of conflict are inevitable. The Israel-Palestine conflict will only end with the end of occupation and mutual recognition. But experts like Eyal Zisser from Tel Aviv University see hope. Israel has achieved significant progress. Hamas was defeated as a military force. Hezbollah suffered severe blows. 2025 could bring political transformations. A report released by the United Nations in March 2025 states that Israel committed crimes against humanity in the forms of genocidal acts and sexual crimes, with details of attacks on maternity and artificial insemination centers. Second sign, dramatically fulfilled. The third sign is signs in the sky, the blood, moons. Joel chapter 2 verse 31 prophesied 2,800 years ago, the sun will be turned to darkness and the moon to blood before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. Jesus reinforced in Luke chapter 21 verses 25 through 28. There will be signs in the sun, moon, and stars. When you see these things happening, stand up and lift up your heads, because your redemption is drawing near. And in 2025, something extraordinary is happening in the heavens. March 14th, 2025. The first blood moon, a total lunar eclipse, appears in the sky. And not on just any day, exactly on the 14th of Adar, in the Hebrew calendar, the day of Purim, when Jews celebrate their deliverance from Haman's genocidal plan in the Persian Empire, which corresponds to present-day Iran. The eclipse was visible in North and South America for about an hour, with the totality phase lasting 82 minutes. The moon acquired a reddish hue, earning the nickname Blood Moon, a phenomenon caused by the scattering of sunlight around Earth's shadow. September 7th, 2025, second blood moon. This time, 2 weeks before Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. It coincides with the 14th of Elul, the month of Teshuvah, a period of prayers and confessions that prepares Israel for the fall feasts, feasts that point to the second coming of the Messiah. The eclipse began at 11:28 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time, and the totality phase lasted 82 minutes. March 3rd, 2026, third blood moon, again on Purim, the 14th of Adar, 3 blood moons, beginning and ending on Purim, interspersed with Rosh Hashanah in the middle, an extremely rare prophetic triad. Pastor John Hagee, author of the bestseller 4 Blood Moons, explains, the heavens function as God's billboard. He's sending us signs we often ignore. The Talmud in Tractate Sukkah 29a teaches, when the sun is eclipsed, it's a bad omen for the idolaters. When the moon is eclipsed, it's a bad omen for Israel, because Israel calculates by the moon and the idolaters by the sun. If it's eclipsed in the east, it's a bad omen for those dwelling in the east. If in the west, it's a bad omen for those dwelling in the west. If in the middle of the sky, it's a bad omen for the whole world. And historically, tetrads of blood moons, which are 4 consecutive lunar eclipses in 2 years, have coincided with monumental events for Israel. In 1493 and 1494, expulsion of Jews from Spain and discovery of the Americas, a new refuge. In 1949 and 1950, founding of the State of Israel in 1948, followed by the War of Independence. In 1967 and 1968, Six-Day War. Israel recaptures Jerusalem for the first time in 2,000 years. In 2014 and 2015, rise of ISIS, nuclear deal with Iran, Israel's war against Hamas. In each tetrad, events that began in tragedy ended in triumph for Israel. Finally, in 1967, Israel recaptured its capital, Jerusalem, during the Six-Day War, an event many consider a crucial precursor to the future construction of the Third Jewish Temple. The Second Temple was destroyed by the Romans in 70 AD. In each of these blood moons, there's something that begins in tragedy and ends in triumph, Hagee said. The next tetrad of blood moons will occur in 2032 and 2033, marking exactly 2,000 years after the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. The last two moons of this tetrad will fall on Jewish holidays, Passover on April 14, 2033, and Sukkot on October 8, 2033. Additionally, a total solar eclipse will occur in the middle of this rare tetrad on March 30, 2033. Prophecy expert Mark Biltz observes, "We're not talking about coincidences. When precise astronomical phenomena coincide with dates on the Jewish calendar that only repeat every 19 years, and moreover during moments of national crisis, this is a clear divine message." Closing out the four main celestial signs in the next 2 years, after the 3 blood moons, there will be a total solar eclipse in August 2026, visible throughout Europe and Russia. Third sign, fulfilled with astronomical yet precision. The fourth sign is the red heifer, the key to the third temple. Numbers chapter 19 verses 2 and 3 records a divine command to Moses. "This is the ordinance of the law which the Lord has commanded. Speak to the children of Israel that they bring you a red heifer without defect, in which there is no blemish and on which no yoke has ever been placed." The ashes of this cow, mixed with water, were used in the purification ritual for anyone who had contact with death. Without this purification, no one can enter the temple. The Talmud teaches that from the days of Moses until the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 AD, only 9 perfect red heifers were sacrificed. The last was burned shortly before the Romans destroyed Jerusalem. And here's the chilling prophecy: the 10th red cow will be prepared by Mashiach himself. For 2,000 years, no perfectly red heifer was found. Candidates in 1997 and 2002 were disqualified. They developed white or black hairs, rendering them impure according to the law. But then, in September 2022, something extraordinary happened. 5 perfect red heifers arrived at Ben Gurion Airport from Texas, imported by businessman Byron Stinson. All of the Red Angus breed, genetically bred by the Temple Institute, an organization founded in 1987 dedicated exclusively to rebuilding the Third Temple. The criteria are strict: completely red, not a single white or black hair, without physical defects, never used for work, no yoke, no burden, minimum age of 3 years, beginning of the 3rd year of life. The 5 heifers were born in October 2021. This means they reached the required age in October 2024. They are cared for in Shiloh, the ancient spiritual capital of Israel, for 369 years, about 19 miles north of Jerusalem. Mariah Shapira, manager of the Shiloh Visitors Center, reveals, "For the first time in 2,000 years, we have truly kosher red heifers. Visitors from every continent come to see them. Something is happening here." Larry Borntrager, an Indiana farmer who cares for the heifers, says, "It's really fun to be involved in something I see God doing behind the scenes. While I was in Shiloh, people from countries I'd never heard of before were here to see these cows." But there's controversy. On July 8, 2025, the Temple Institute conducted a rehearsal of the sacrifice ritual using one of the heifers that had developed 2 black hairs, disqualifying it according to strict criteria. Evangelical influencer Gabe Poirot interviewed Byron Stinson, who reportedly confirmed that the sacrifice already occurred out of the media spotlight on July 1st, 2025, with a cow named Tikva, which means hope in Hebrew. Adam King, an Orthodox Jew, appeared on a podcast showing in his hands what he claimed were the ashes of the sacrificed red heifer. The Temple Institute officially denied it, claiming it was only a rehearsal with a disqualified heifer. But experts point out, if the ashes really exist, the prophetic clock has started ticking. Why? Because with the ashes, any Jew can purify himself, and once purified, he can enter the Temple Mount, where the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock stand today, and begin rebuilding the Third Temple. Abu Ubaidah of Hamas declared that the arrival of the heifers was one of the reasons for the October 7th attack, calling it an application of a detestable religious myth. According to Jewish tradition and prophetic texts, the Third Temple must exist before the coming of Mashiach. Daniel chapter 9 verse 27 and Matthew chapter 24 verse 15 speak of events in the temple during the last days. According to the laws of the red heifer described in Numbers 19, the cow must be at least 3 years old. The cow is taken outside the camp and sacrificed in the presence of the Cohen, the priest. Fourth sign, fulfilled or very close. The fifth sign is archaeological discoveries. The land testifies. Acts chapter 1 verse 3 says that Jesus presented himself alive with many convincing proofs. And in 2025, archaeology continues to offer convincing proofs that biblical prophecies are real. January 16th, 2025. Archaeologists announced the discovery of a sanctuary sealed for almost 3,000 years in Jerusalem, near the Temple Mount. The structure, carved into rock, has 8 rooms that house an altar, a sacred stone called a masseba, and presses for producing olive oil and wine used in rituals. Dr. Eli Shukron, chief archaeologist, explains, according to the Bible, King Hezekiah managed to centralize worship at the Jerusalem temple, abolishing local rituals. This sanctuary was deliberately sealed, not destroyed, as part of Hezekiah's reforms. 2 Kings chapter 18 verse 4 confirms, Hezekiah removed the high places, cut down the sacred stones, and did what was right in the eyes of the Lord. The sacred stone, Masseba, found preserved, is called by Shukron the most significant and impactful discovery of the excavation. It was never destroyed, only carefully sealed, suggesting that the priests hoped it would one day be rediscovered. But there's more. May 2024. A study published in the journal PNAS reveals that researchers used radiocarbon dating on organic materials, carbonized seeds, date pits, even bat skeletons from 4 archaeological sites in the city of David. The result? Scientific confirmation of biblical events, an earthquake in the mid-8th century BC, probably the one in Amos chapter 1 verse 1, a period of reconstruction after the earthquake. Babylonian destruction in 586 BC, exactly as described in 2 Kings 25. Dr. Yuval Gadot from Tel Aviv University states, after 150 years of archaeological investigation, a more complete and accurate picture of Jerusalem during the Kingdom of Judah is emerging. The wall discovered on the eastern slopes of Jerusalem is older than previously thought. It was believed to have been built by King Hezekiah to defend the city during the Assyrian siege, but carbon dating revealed the wall was built before Hezekiah, confirming other biblical kings. March 2024, excavations at Lachish reveal fortification walls from the reign of Rehoboam, 920 BC, son of Solomon. 2 Chronicles 11 describes Rehoboam fortifying Lachish, but critics claimed there was no evidence. Now there is. 2024. Discovery of Assyrian military camps near Jerusalem confirms Sennacherib's siege in 701 BC, described in 2 Kings 18 through 19 and Isaiah 36 through 37. In the Lachish region, a city that fell to Sennacherib, and also Near Jerusalem, evidence emerges of walls and structures related to the camp style, documented in the Assyrian reliefs at the British Museum. DNA of ancient Israelites was extracted from remains in a tomb from 750 to 650 BC near Jerusalem. Described as a holy grail in the study of the lost civilization, the DNA promises to answer questions about the origins of the Israelites. The genetic material was extracted from two individuals whose remains were found in a family tomb west of Jerusalem. But the most intriguing discovery, 2025. Archaeologists identified the possible location of Mahanaim, a biblical city mentioned in Genesis 32, where Jacob had a vision of angels. The word Mahanaim means two camps, which makes sense geographically, since a few miles away is another site that archaeologists believe is Penuel, a related biblical city. And at Tel Shimron, a large Canaanite temple with thousands of bones from sacrificed animals and tablet fragments that could form a Canaanite library, is being excavated, potentially shedding light on Baal, Asherah, and other gods mentioned in the Old Testament. Fifth sign, fulfilled with scientific validation. The sixth sign is preparations for the third temple. Everything is ready. Ezekiel chapter 37 verses 26 through 28 prophecies. I will make a covenant of peace with them, and I will set my sanctuary in their midst forever, and the nations will know that I am the Lord. Zechariah chapter 6 verses 12 and 13 adds, Behold, the man whose name is the branch, he will build the temple of the Lord, and will be a priest on his throne for 1,755 years. Since the Roman destruction in 70 AD, there has been no temple in Jerusalem. But in 1987, something changed. Rabbi Yisrael Ariel founded the Temple Institute, Hamikdash, with an audacious mission: prepare everything necessary for the reconstruction of the Third Temple. And in 2025, more than 90% of the ritual objects are ready. Menorah of pure gold, 7-branched candelabra weighing 99 pounds ready, golden incense altar ready, table of showbread ready, silver trumpets to announce sacrifices ready, priestly garments embroidered in gold and blue ready, high priest's crown, zitz, in gold, with the inscription, Holiness to the Lord ready, surgical instruments for circumcision and sacrifices ready, 10-stringed lyre described in the Psalms reconstructed, bronze utensils for ritual washing ready. The Institute even created a 1-to-1 scale replica of what the temple would look like, based on descriptions from Ezekiel 40 through 48, Exodus 25 through 27, and the account of historian Flavius Josephus. Detailed architectural plans? Ready. Jerusalem stones pre-cut according to biblical dimensions? Stored. But there's a giant problem. The Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the third holiest place in Islam, occupy exactly the location where the Third Temple should be built. Any attempt to touch them could trigger a catastrophic regional war. But rabbis point out something intriguing. Ezekiel 40 through 43 describes the future temple as descending from heaven, already complete. Revelation chapter 21 verse 2 confirms, I saw the holy city, the New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God. Some believe the Third Temple may manifest supernaturally, solving the political impasse. Rabbi David Schwartz, current director of the Temple Institute, declares, we don't know when, but we know everything is ready. When Mashiach appears, there will be no delays. The priests are being trained, the instruments are polished. We're just waiting for the signal. And there's something more. Kohanim priests, descendants of Aaron, are being identified via DNA tests and trained in sacrifice rituals according to Leviticus. Hyssop, a plant used in purification rituals mentioned in Numbers 19, was recultivated after millennia of regional extinction. The sacred anointing oil, made with myrrh, cinnamon, aromatic calamus, and cassia, according to Exodus chapter 30, verses 23 through 25, was reproduced following ancient recipes preserved in the Talmud. Sixth sign, fulfilled with ritual precision. The seventh sign is the proximity of year 6000, the prophetic clock. Psalm 90 verse 4 declares, "1,000 years in your sight are like a day that has just gone by." Peter chapter 3 verse 8 confirms, "With the Lord a day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years are like a day." Based on this, the Talmud, Sanhedrin 97a, teaches the world will exist for 6,000 years and will be destroyed for 1,000, referring to the messianic era as the millennial Sabbath. The math is frighteningly precise. Days 1 through 6 of creation equals 6,000 years of human history. Day 7, Sabbath, equals 1,000 years of messianic peace. Where are we now? Year 5785 of the Hebrew calendar, October 2024 to September 2025. How much time remains? 6,000 minus 5,785 equals 215 years. A recent article from the Yeshiva World, June 2025, points out, using Ecclesiastes 3, which lists 28 times, a time to be born, a time to die, we can divide the 6,000 years into 28 periods of approximately 214 years each. This would place 2025 in the 28th and final period, called Eis Shalom, time of peace, preceding the Messianic era. Rabbi Pinchas Winston, specialist in Jewish eschatology, observes, "Never in history have so many signs converged simultaneously. We're seeing the accelerated fulfillment of prophecies that were dormant for millennia." The Zohar, Toldot 139a, prophesies that 40 years before the resurrection of the dead, there will be kibbutz galiot, ingathering of the exiles, a period when all Jews will return to Israel. If the Messianic era begins in year 6000, and there are 40 years of preparation, this means kibbutz galiot would begin around 5960, that is, approximately 175 years in the future from 2025. But the Talmud also teaches, if we are worthy, Mashiach can come earlier. If not, he will come at the appointed time. The Rebbe Menachem Schneerson in 1991 stated, "Categorically, I have done everything I could. Now it's up to you to do everything to bring Mashiach." 3 years later, in 1994, the Rebbe passed away, but his words echo, "All the necessary service has already been performed. We are only waiting for the revelation." The Talmud says 6 millennia the world will exist, and in 1 millennium it will be destroyed. This is not an apocalyptic prophecy, but just a description of what will occur when the world reaches its ultimate goal. Based on the connection between world and hidden, Chassidut explains the concept in Hebrew world is olam, which derives from helam, concealment, that the material world conceals the divine presence. This is the meaning of the Talmudic statement. This concealment will last at most until the 7th millennium, when God will be revealed and will dwell with us in the material world. 7th sign, chronologically fulfilled. So, is the Messiah among us in 2025? Let's recap what you just witnessed. First, the return of the exiles. 30,000 plus Jews returning in 2024 and 2025, despite the war, fulfilling Isaiah chapter 11, verses 11 and 12. Second, wars and rumors of wars. Israel-Hamas conflict, Israel-Iran war in June 2025, 28,000 rocket attacks. Never has Israel faced so many enemies simultaneously. Third, signs in the sky. 3 blood moons in 2025 and 2026, coinciding with Purim and Rosh Hashanah, fulfilling Joel chapter 2, verse 31. Fourth, the red heifer, 5 perfect heifers, possible sacrifice in July 2025. Ashes available for purification. Fifth, archaeological discoveries. 3,000-year-old sanctuary, carbon dating confirming biblical events, DNA of ancient Israelites. Sixth, preparations for the Third Temple, 90% plus of objects ready, priests trained, architecture finalized. Seventh, year 6000 approaching, we're in 5785, 215 years remain, last prophetic period of 28 times, 7 signs, 7 fulfillments, simultaneously. But here's the truth you need to understand. I'm not the one saying the Messiah is near. It's the Jewish rabbis themselves. It's the undeniable signs. It's the prophetic mathematics. So what do you do with this information? First, don't panic. The coming of Mashiach, according to Jewish tradition, brings world peace, end of war, universal justice, and knowledge of God filling the earth. Second, pay attention. We're living in an extraordinary era. Events that seemed impossible are happening before our eyes. Third, choose your stance. You can ignore these signs and continue living as if nothing is happening. Or you can recognize that we're in a unique moment in history. Isaiah chapter 52 verse 7 declares, "How beautiful on the mountains are the feet of those who bring good news, who proclaim peace, who bring good tidings, who proclaim salvation, who say to Zion, your God reigns." And Zechariah chapter 14 verse 9 prophesies the final day. The Lord will be king over the whole earth. On that day there will be one Lord, and his name the only name. Regardless of your faith, these events are happening. They're not theory, they're not speculation. They're documented, scientifically validated facts visible to anyone willing to see. The question isn't, do you believe? The question is, what will you do with what you just discovered? If this video made you think, leave a comment with the phrase, "I'm paying attention." I want to know how many of you truly understand the magnitude of the moment we're living in. And if you want to continue receiving content like this, deep, well-researched, without cheap sensationalism, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because what's coming in the next few months may be even more extraordinary. Until the next video, God bless.